Graham Whitaker hadn't expected to spend his Friday night laid out on an emergency room stretcher, his shirt ripped open and blood seeping from his side. All he'd meant to do was step in when some drunk started harassing a waitress. One broken glass later, and here he was, wounded, annoyed, and more frustrated by the detour than the pain itself. It wasn't the injury that bothered him. He'd had worse. What irked him was his driver's insistence on heading straight to the hospital instead of home to his penthouse. But when the curtain pulled back, something shifted. A woman stepped in wearing a white coat, her eyes sharp and steady, chestnut hair tied back with a few strands loose. Not flashy beautiful, but there was something striking about her, undeniably compelling. "I'm Dr. Elise Monroe," she said calmly, clipboard in hand. "Let's take a look at that wound." Graham let out a soft chuckle, eyes fixed on her. He didn't know what this was yet, but somehow, in that moment, he knew he wanted to find out more. 2 days later, Graham Whitaker stood casually beside his sleek black sports car, eyes fixed on the entrance of a small cafe near the hospital. The scent of roasted coffee mingled with the city air, and though he was a man who rarely waited for anything, here he was, waiting for her. Then she appeared, Elise Monroe, her hair pulled back in a neat bun, a coffee cup in one hand, phone in the other. She was mid-conversation, nodding slightly, until her eyes landed on him. Her brows lifted in amused exasperation as she ended her call and approached. "Tell me you didn't track my schedule just to stand here looking smug," she said, flatly. Graham offered a slow grin. "I prefer the term persistent." She took a measured sip of her drink, gaze sharp. "And I prefer uninterested." "I don't believe that," he said smoothly. She let out a breath. "Let me guess. You charm me, I fall for it, and then what? You get bored?" He tilted his head slightly, eyes never leaving hers. "That's a lot of assumptions, Doc." Elise folded her arms, unimpressed. "I've met your type." "And what type is that?" "The kind who thinks persistence equals entitlement." Graham chuckled. "I don't think I'm entitled to anything, but I do think you're intrigued, and that scares you." For a moment, she didn't respond. Then she glanced at her watch. "I have exactly 10 minutes before I go back inside." He gestured toward a nearby bench. "Then let's not waste them." To his quiet surprise, she walked over and sat down without another word. Graham followed, a faint smile tugging at his lips. The game had only just begun. Graham was never one to do things halfway. When Elise agreed to dinner, he went all in. A rooftop restaurant with soft lighting, a quiet, elegant atmosphere that defied the flashy assumptions people often made about him. When Elise stepped out of her building that evening, Graham momentarily forgot how to breathe. She wore a simple navy dress that hugged her figure just right, her hair down in soft waves. Not overly done, just effortlessly stunning. "You're punctual," she remarked, approaching his car. "I don't like wasting time," he replied, opening the door for her, "especially not tonight." She didn't ask where they were going, but he noticed the subtle way her fingers tapped against her thigh, a quiet sign of guardedness. When they arrived at a private entrance leading to a rooftop venue, her expression shifted, curiosity replacing caution. "You don't do simple, do you?" she asked. "I do what works," he said, offering his arm. She hesitated, then slipped her hand into the crook of his elbow. They were led to a table tucked in a quiet corner with a view of the glowing skyline. Elise glanced around, eyebrows raised. "I expected something flashier, an exclusive club maybe, something with a 2-year wait list." "I considered it," Graham replied, settling into his seat, "but I figured you'd appreciate good food more than a status symbol." For the first time that night, she looked surprised. He'd read her better than she expected. "You're very confident in your ability to figure people out," she said. "It's a skill that served me well. What about you? Why did you become a doctor?" She paused, then answered, "Because I wanted to fix things, people. I liked the idea of making a tangible difference." Graham nodded slowly, and in that moment he knew this woman sitting across from him might just be the most meaningful pursuit of his life. Something had shifted. The wall she had carefully built around herself was still there, but it no longer towered as high. She was still cautious, but not as guarded. Her silence didn't push him away anymore. It invited patience. And Graham had plenty of that, for her, at least. He didn't try to impress her with grand gestures or empty promises. Instead, he showed up in the quiet ways, the kind that mattered. A perfectly timed coffee delivery at her favorite cafe with a handwritten note, "Hope today's shift is kind to you." Another time, he had a box of delicate French pastries delivered, the ones she'd only briefly mentioned liking during their dinner. He'd tracked down the only bakery that made them, one that only took orders on Fridays. Elise never responded with gushing thanks or flirty texts, but Graham noticed the change, the softening in her eyes, the way her thank you messages came a little quicker, a little warmer. One night, after an especially grueling shift, Elise stood just outside the hospital, exhausted but restless. Her fingers hovered over her phone. She didn't even know why she dialed his number, just that she did. He picked up on the first ring. "Elise." She hesitated, breath catching. "I don't even know why I called." "Where are you?" "At the hospital." "Stay there. I'll be there in 10. "Graham, that's not..." The line went dead. Exactly 10 minutes later, his car pulled up to the curb. Graham stepped out, still dressed in his dark dress shirt, looking like he'd just walked out of a meeting, but his focus was all on her. "Did you just leave something important for this?" she asked, trying to sound annoyed. "You called. That makes it important." Her heart did something strange in her chest, and when he opened the door, she climbed in without another word. They drove in silence, city lights flashing past. Eventually, he pulled into a quiet overlook, the skyline sprawling before them like a painting. "You don't have to carry everything on your own, Elise," he said gently. "Even the strongest people need a place to exhale." She looked at him. "You think that's what you are for me? A place to breathe?" He didn't smile this time. His voice was steady. "If you'll let me be, yes." She didn't answer, but she stayed, and when she rested her hand lightly against his on the center console, without looking, it said more than words ever could. Graham Whitaker had never been someone who wavered easily. He'd sat across from billion-dollar investors, negotiated in high-pressure boardrooms. But that morning, when his assistant entered and calmly stated, "There's a man here who says he's Dr. Monroe's father, waiting in the conference room," Graham paused, just for a heartbeat. Elise rarely talked about her family. She had once, briefly, mentioned her relationship with her father was complicated, a word heavy with all the things left unsaid. He adjusted the cuffs of his shirt and walked into the conference room with a composed expression. The man already seated was older, stern, and carried the kind of silent authority that didn't need words to dominate a space. He had Elise's eyes, sharp, calm, but filled with quiet scrutiny. "Mr. Whitaker," the man said, his tone flat, "I believe you know why I'm here." "I know you're Elise's father," Graham replied calmly, "and for me, that's reason enough to listen." Mr. Westwood gave a slight nod, though his gaze never softened. "My daughter lives by principle. She isn't swayed by charm or shiny things. She's built her life alone, on her terms. No offense, but I doubt someone like you stepping into her world is a good thing." Graham didn't react immediately. He sat tall, hands resting lightly on the table, eyes steady. "I didn't come into Elisa's life to fill time or stroke my ego. I came because she makes me want to be better. She makes me care about more than just success." "You are used to getting what you want," Mr. Westwood said, "but my daughter is not a reward to be earned." "I've never seen her as a reward," Graham answered, voice firm. "Elise is independent, strong. That's exactly why I respect her." There was a pause. Mr. Westwood's voice dropped just slightly. "She's been hurt before. Don't be another chapter in that book." Graham stood slowly, buttoned his suit jacket, and looked him directly in the eye. "I won't promise this will be easy, but I do promise I don't walk away when things get hard. With Elise, I'm all in. No backup plan, no halfway." The older man stared at him for a few more seconds. He didn't offer a handshake, no words of encouragement, just a small nod, subtle but not meaningless. As Graham left the room, he understood. This wasn't approval, it was a test. And perhaps, just maybe, he had passed the first one. Elise Monroe had never been the kind of woman who let people in easily. She was used to handling things on her own, fixing, managing, surviving. The old wounds, invisible to others, were still very real to her. They made her cautious, even when her heart whispered otherwise. Graham understood that early on. He didn't push. He didn't flutter with compliments or promises. Instead, he showed up, consistently, quietly, patiently, and somehow that made a deeper impact than anything else ever could. One late afternoon, Graham walked into the hospital staff lounge carrying a small paper bag. Elise was sitting at a table alone, looking tired, brows slightly furrowed. He placed the bag in front of her without saying a word. She raised an eyebrow. Bribing the cafeteria staff now? She opened the bag to find her favorite sandwich, the same one she had offhandedly complained about not finding in the vending machine the day before. "I have my ways," Graham said casually. She took a bite, chewing slowly. "You don't have to do stuff like this." "I know, but I want to." She looked at him, her expression softer than usual. "You always do that. These small things that somehow stick." "And does it bother you?" he asked. "No," she admitted. "It's just new. I'm not used to it." Graham let the moment breathe, then asked gently, "Elise, do you ever wonder why you're so hesitant to let someone care for you?" She didn't answer right away. Then, carefully, she said, "Because I'm afraid of losing myself in it. I've built everything on my own. I don't know how to share that load without feeling like I'm giving something up." Graham reached out, resting his hand lightly on hers. Letting someone in doesn't mean giving something up. It means gaining someone who's willing to carry it with you when you're tired, when you're hurting, or when you just need someone to stand beside you. Elise stared down at their hands. Such a simple gesture, yet it felt so significant. "I'm not good at this," she whispered. "Then let me teach you," he said softly, one step at a time. She took a deep breath, like she'd just let go of something she'd been gripping too tightly. And slowly, so slowly, she didn't pull her hand away. To Graham, that wasn't a small gesture. It was the most important step they'd taken so far. For most of his life, Graham Whitaker made decisions like a chess player. 3 moves ahead, 5, 10. But loving Elise, that didn't need a plan. With her, there was no strategy, just honesty. That evening, he drove her to a garden overlooking the city, hidden away, quiet, and wrapped in golden string lights that hung delicately between trees. The path beneath their feet glowed softly with each step. When Elise stepped out of the car, she glanced around, her expression laced with curiosity and the faintest trace of suspicion. "What is all this?" she asked, the caution in her voice more instinct than mistrust. "Trust me," Graham said softly, extending his hand. "Just take a walk with me." She hesitated only a moment before placing her hand in his. They walked until they reached the center of the garden. A simple white floral arch stood against the night sky, with the city's skyline twinkling in the distance. Elise turned to him, brow arched. "Graham, what are you doing? You're not—" But he was already kneeling. Her breath caught in her chest. Graham looked up at her, steady and calm. "I used to think I had everything figured out. Career, control, success. But then you came along, and everything changed. You made me want something I didn't even know I needed." She stood frozen, eyes glistening. "It's not because you need me, it's because you don't. And yet I still want to be by your side. I want to carry what you've always carried alone. I don't want to fix you, I want to walk with you." He reached into his pocket and revealed a small velvet box. The ring inside was simple, understated, yet it felt like it had been made just for her. "Elise Monroe, will you marry me?" She didn't speak right away. Not because she was unsure, but because the moment was so real, so full, it had taken her breath away. And then, slowly, her lips curved into a smile, the kind that reached her eyes, the kind she'd never allowed herself before. "Yes," she whispered. Graham rose, slipped the ring onto her finger, and she pulled him into a deep, unguarded embrace. For the first time, she wasn't holding back. This time, she let herself believe in love, the kind that didn't demand change, only presence. They held a small, quiet wedding, just a handful of people they truly cared about. No extravagance, no spectacle. Elise wore a simple white dress, elegant and effortless, her eyes soft as she walked toward Graham, and for once, he wasn't thinking about anything else but her. When they exchanged vows, there were no promises of perfection, just words about trying, about learning to trust, about not walking away when things got hard. Graham had lived his life led by logic. Elise had survived behind walls. But in each other, they found a place to rest, to breathe, to simply be. Neither of them changed for the other. They just learned how to walk forward together, with honesty, maturity, and a depth that didn't need grand declarations to feel real. Life after marriage for Graham and Elise wasn't a picture-perfect fairy tale, but it was something rarer, a peace built on understanding and the quiet, daily decision to stay. They were still busy. Elise continued working long shifts, often coming home just as the sun peeked over the skyline. Graham still ran his company, managed endless meetings, made weighty decisions, but amidst all the chaos, they always found each other. Every morning, if Elise worked a night shift, Graham would leave a hot coffee on the counter along with a handwritten note, "Come home soon, you're the best part of my day." If Graham left for work early, Elise would tuck a mint candy into his suit pocket, a tiny habit he once casually mentioned on their first few dates. They still argued, sometimes over silly things, forgotten trash, misplaced laundry, but they never went to bed angry. Graham would always make tea, and Elise would always reach out first, with a gentle touch, or simply by sitting beside him. Some evenings, they did nothing special, just sat on the balcony together, watching the city lights flicker, fingers intertwined in silence. The quiet between them no longer felt empty. It felt like home. Elise used to believe love wasn't hers to have. Graham thought emotional depth was a luxury he could live without. But now, in the calm rhythm of their days, they didn't have to try to hold on to love. They simply chose each other, genuinely and completely. And that, dear soul, is the quiet kind of love we often overlook. The kind that doesn't chase attention, but chooses presence. If Graham and Elise's journey spoke to something in your heart, don't forget to like, share, or leave a comment below. I'd love to hear your thoughts. Thank you for spending this time with me here at Noah's Stories. Until next time, stay kind, stay open, and remember, the love that's meant for you will never rush you. It will meet you exactly where you are.